You're sitting there with one of your friends, you guys are having a conversation, you're laughing, and you're sitting there thinking to yourselves, yo, we should start a podcast. And your friend's like, yo, we should start a podcast. So you guys are sitting there like, we should start a podcast, but you have no idea where to start. If that's the position you're in, then you're watching the perfect video, because I'm about to show you how to start a podcast in the simplest way. You know what I mean? That's what we do here. We teach things in the simplest way possible. All right. So boom, right? When you get a podcast, the first thing you're going to want to do is decide the vibe, right? Is it a comedy podcast? Is it a serious podcast? Is it a little bit of both or whatever? You know what I mean? You're just going to want to think about that and write that out so you have an idea, and it's going to help you in the future continue to get your podcast to be the way you want it to be. So the very first thing you're going to do is decide the vibe of your podcast and write it out. For example, I have a podcast, the Dropout 704 podcast, hosted by the one and only Samad Sinclair. So our podcast vibe is, our mission statement is, drop out of society's predetermined notions of how to live your life. There's no one-size-fits-all remedy to happiness. And we like to show that through conversations with entrepreneurs, athletes, and interesting people who have the same kind of, ideology as us, or even people, who have different ones, but, just anything to further conversation. We have an idea of what our podcast is about. So figure that out first, and, that can change over time. You don't, the first thing you say doesn't have to be it, but there's a bunch of different options you have. You could do like a lifestyle podcast. You could do a health and fitness podcast. You could do, mystery TV show podcast. There's a bunch of different ones you could go with. All right. Next thing you're going to do, start getting some equipment so that you could actually shoot your podcast. So there's a bunch of different options. So you could get a camera if you want a pretty nice, easy beginner camera. I personally recommend the Sony ZV-1. That's what this is being shot out of. So if you like it, there you go. Here's a freaking product review, you know what I'm saying? I'll also link down below in the descriptions the products that I use or products that I recommend. So you're going to get a camera. If you don't have the budget to spend on getting a nicer camera, or you don't have one already, don't even worry about it. Literally, you have a phone, use your phone. Your phone will be good enough. Use your phone, make it happen. All right. The other equipment you need, you need video. And to make your video better, you could get some lights. You could get small lights. Like I have this small light right here, and it works wonders. You know what I'm saying? So you get some lights, or get bigger ones. I'll have those in the description as well. But I always tell people, if you have the ability to utilize natural light, utilize that natural light. If you're recording at night or in a dark area, then obviously you're gonna have to make some investments and get yourself some lights. But they don't have to be over the top. And you're also gonna need audio. So if you have the ability to get like a Rodecaster, I would say definitely go do it. I've used them. I love them. Personally, I use a mixing board. Being a musician, I just have some like music equipment that works just as well for my podcasting things. But I do have to take extra steps. So if you happen to be a musician, then this part will be a lot easier for you. But if you're coming in with no recording knowledge at all, Rodecasters are very user friendly, and you can find some for pretty decently priced, and I'll have them below. So the other thing that you could do if you don't want to go that expensive route, I say you can use your phone's audio and run it through Adobe Podcast. Adobe Podcast is an AI engineer system that will take your audio and enhance it so it sounds like it came out of a studio mic. I've used it on podcasts before, just testing out, seeing how much I liked it and whatnot. And I've literally had people with their mics in front of them, but still used Adobe Podcast in order to enhance the audio to make it sound like it was actually coming out of the mics. So it's a really cool tool. I personally think that it's better to have mics, but if you don't have mics, it's not the end of the world, because that tool is out there and it will be better than your natural camera audio 100%. And it's only like $10 a month. So it's a pretty cool one, not that expensive. You could also get mics online that connect to your to your camera if you're using your phone. There's one that I've used before. It was pretty good, but I realized like after a while it didn't work as well. I'll still link that below, but I'll also link ones below that are nicer and a little bit more on the pricier side. But, and by the pricier side, I mean like still under $100, you know. But just more than you're gonna find little lav mics for like $13. It's a risk, but you know it's worth getting sometimes to like check it out, see what you like about it, what you don't like about it, so that when you do invest into something nice, you know what you're paying for. You could actually tell the difference of what's going on. All right. Next, you're going to want to plan your episodes. I plan all my episodes, right? I have my iPad. I write them down. I have a bunch of, like, different things. Like, right now, today's episode that we're doing is how to make a podcast. It's going to be difficult if you know what you're talking about to just sit in front of a camera and just start talking about it nonstop without any sort of plan or idea or direction of which way you want to take it. So, personally, I recommend planning your podcast. That could just be bullet points that you want to hit throughout the conversation if you're talking to someone, which leads me into my other point, which is invite a think about inviting a co-host. So you could figure that out either by asking a friend, like, hey, do you want to be my co-host? Or you could figure it out by getting a bunch of friends on, and those are like your first episodes with your guests. You know, like you're doing a podcast with one of your friends. And then if there's one of the friends you really hit it off with and you guys have the best conversations, or maybe a couple of them, ask them if they want to be co-hosts, you know? And it makes it a lot easier because sometimes you might be talking about something, lose your train of thought. It's nice to have other people who can kind of piggyback off of what you're saying and build off of it. Or if you're doing an interview, you know, it's cool to have multiple perspectives for your audience, because you might not think of every question that your audience on the other side of the camera is thinking about. But you and the co-host together, you guys have a better chance of crossing all boxes. You know what I'm saying? So think about getting a co-host. All right. And then you're at your last step, right? Well, almost your last step. You've decided the vibe, you got your equipment, you got your episodes planned out, you have some friends on, maybe you got a co-host by now, so you're ready. You've shot your podcast, you got stuff going, so you're going to clip up your podcast and post them on social media. Post them on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube Shorts. There's like multiple places to post short form content, and there's only going to be more coming up. You got Snapchat Spotlight. I think Amazon actually just made their own short form content like platform. So there's a ton of places that you could post your stuff to get your podcast out there. And you know, once you post it, you'll be able to get more people on because they'll see it. They'll say, oh, okay, this is what you do. This is pretty cool. I like the show. And you'll realize that it's so ideal to have a podcast because you might want to learn something from someone. And if you're just like, hey, will you teach me this? They're kind of like, I just got to take my time to, like, you know, show someone something. But it's a lot easier to say, hey, I think what you do is awesome. Would you be interested in coming on my podcast? And they're like, oh, yeah. So now you get, like, not only are you educating yourself, they're also able to be put on a platform and, you know, show themselves to people. And the nicer you make your podcast, the nicer people are going to feel when they come on it, you know? So, yeah, I hope this helped you out. You know, this is your boy, Samad Sinclair. Shout out to the Dropout 704. That's my dog, Essie. She getting a little riled up. I don't know what's going on, but she lit. I'm glad she did it at the end of the video, not in the beginning. But hopefully she stops before I start the next one. All right, man. Peace out. Love you guys. Like, comment, subscribe. All those links down below. Hopefully this video really impacts your life. Peace.